Hi. Okay, so I've got a question about this question here, which is question 2 from game 1 of the May 2020 LSAT Flex sample. And yeah, so I just want to clear up any confusion about this question and discuss how you get the answer here. Let's go through the stimulus, or the scenario and the rules and deductions again, just to make sure that we're on the same page there. So an investigator is trying to determine the order in which 5 successive phone calls were made, 1 call each to Quinn, Roth, Smith, Tang, and Vitt. So those are going to be our players, and we are ordering them. Okay, so I'll just list them here. Okay, we've got 5 of them, and we are ordering them, right? So that's sort of our basic diagram. Each call was of one of 2 types. So we do have an added element here, and that's whether the calls are local or non-local. I mean, a couple ways that you can choose to deal with this. You might want to just add another line to your sequence. So you could add a line up top or on the bottom, if you want to put Quinn, Roth, Smith, Tang, and Vitt on the top line, and then on the bottom you indicate whether they're local or non-local, that would work. That's what I'll do here. Okay, you could also kind of subscript them, or once you find out whether something's local or non-local, you could kind of change the font of it. But I like the double line. It keeps things separated nicely, because sometimes you might know the order of the players, and then sometimes you might know whether a particular call is local or non-local, right? So depending on which piece of information you have, you want to be able to add that to your diagram without having to know the other piece of information right away. Okay, and that will become relevant actually for question 2. Okay, so the first rule is that Quinn's call was immediately before Vitt's, but at some time after Smith's. So we'll kind of break that down a little bit. So first, Quinn's call was immediately before Vitt's. So that means that Q occurs right before V. I just put it in almost a little box there between those brackets. Make sure we're keeping those guys together. But at some time after Smith's, and this refers to Quinn again. Okay, so Quinn's call is the subject of this sentence. So Quinn's call, yes, immediately before Vitt's. Also, Quinn's call is at some time after Smith's. So we have S sometime before Q, which means it's sometime before this block of Q and V. So this is going to give us a decent amount of structure for the sequencing of our players. So that's positive. So we do have a mix of sequencing rules here, but then also grouping in a sense, because we have the local group and the non-local group, or maybe matching would be another way to describe it. We're matching whether it's local or non-local, or you could think of it as an in and out game, right? We have these 2 separate groups. And so if it's not a local call, then it must be a non-local call, vice versa. So sort of similar to an in and out game or a selection game in that sense, but very generally, we've got an order element and a group element in this game. All right. So second rule, Smith's call was of a different type than Vitt's. Okay, so Smith and Vitt, 2 different types of calls. That means we have 2 options. Either Smith is local and Vitt is non-local, or Smith is non-local and Vitt is local. So we could kind of show those 2 options, right? So we have Smith local, and Vitt is non-local, or we have Smith non-local and Vitt local. Okay, so that's rule 2. Q and T's calls were local. So Q is always local and T is always local. So that's good to know. Might even kind of put that in here, you know, QL, TL. It's a little bit confusing there, actually. Those just look like extra I's, like the letter I. So, I mean, maybe, you know, underneath you want to say Q is local, right? And then T is also local. That's another way of doing it potentially. And then the third call is non-local. We can just add that right into our diagram. Okay. So given we know now that Q is local, I'm actually going to go ahead and, oh, you have to change the color of the whole thing. That is not very helpful. In any case, yeah, Q here, we know that it's local, therefore it cannot be third. Okay. V could potentially be third. So we could have SQV as our top row here, right? So I'm trying to figure out how I can combine the knowledge that Q is local, S is before Q, which is right before V, and that the third call is non-local. So I do have a way to connect the sequencing information to the local, non-local information. And that was really what the question was referring to. This question 2 here was, how do you deduce local, non-local from information that is just about the sequence, right? So in this case, we get a question specific condition, right, for question 2. And the question specific condition just tells us that this call, Roths, which up until this point is kind of a wild card, right? We don't know anything about R. R isn't mentioned in the rules. But now we're told that Roth's call is second. How do we take that information and then deduce, the correct answer, which has to have something to do with local, non-local, right? All of the answer choices deal with that. So R. All right, if R is second, what is that going to tell me about any of the other players? That's my first question, right? So I'm not really looking at making a straight line between the question specific condition and the correct answer. I'm looking to create like a chain reaction that leads to the correct answer, right? It's not always going to be as simple as one deduction. And so in this case, I'm probably going to have to make more than one deduction in order to actually get the correct answer choice. So if R is second, what does that tell me about the sequence of the other players that I do know something about? So I know S is before Q and V. Q and V are stuck together. I know I could have S be non-local. That would be fine. And then Q and V would be at the end here, right, in their little block. But Q can never be non-local. Q is always local. So Q cannot be third, and Q definitely can't be first because S has to be before Q. So no matter what happens with S, whether S is first or third, Q and V have to be at the end. Okay, so I do know something significant about the sequence there. I know that Q is local, and then I know that V has to be the opposite of whatever S is, but that's not super helpful, right? Something else that I know though, is I know that T is local. So S and T are the only players I haven't put in the sequence yet. And I do know that spot 3 is non-local, so T can't be third because T is local. So T will have to be first and local. And then S, the only remaining player, is going to have to be Third, non-local. Because S is non-local, V has to be local. Okay. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing that just getting a little bit of information about a player that doesn't have any rules or any restrictions is actually really helping me fill in the rest of the diagram. I still do not know whether R is local or non-local. Okay. If I knew there had to be 3 local calls and 2 non-local, then I could determine that. But I just know that each call is one of 2 types. I could have 4 local and 1 non-local. That would be fine as well. That would also fit here. So going through the rules, making sure I'm following all of them. We have S before Q and V. We have S and V are of different types. We have Q local and T local. Ross call is second, we've done that. All right, so all of these things must be true. The only thing that's undetermined at this point is whether R is local or non-local. Okay, but we do know the sequence of the players, right, from first to fifth. All right, so the first call was non-local. That's not possible, right? We know that the first call is T and has to be local. So that one's out. The second is non-local. We don't know what the second is. So B and E, either one of those are possible, but they don't have to be true. The fourth call is non-local. That's incorrect. It actually has to be local. And the first call was local. Yes, that is the correct answer. So D must be correct. Okay. So I will just double check the previous video that I made to make sure that I didn't make a mistake on this question, but I wanted to go through it separately and like in more depth, just to kind of show how I get there from the rules that, that I'm given, right? And the deductions that I had made based on them already. So hopefully this helps. If you'd like further clarification on any point, please let me know. You can also maybe add like a timestamp at, you know, in your, so if you just say like at, you know, minute 2, like, you know, at this timestamp of like 2:15, you say blah, blah, blah. How do you know that? Or, you know, if you want me to like further elaborate on that, that would be helpful. But yeah, and hopefully this is helpful to you. And if you do have any further questions about this or any other game, just let me know. Right. Yeah. Have a good one.